you.
Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Brian from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
Buckle up, let's dive in. Welcome to another edition of the Security Squawk podcast. I'm your co-host Brian, here with Andre and Randy. Welcome to another week.
How are you? Happy holidays.
I'm buckled up, man.
Happy holidays. Here we go. So welcome to the podcast where we bring you the goods on cybersecurity and what's going on out there in the world and how you can start protecting yourself. First comes awareness, then comes what you needed to do. So we're bringing awareness on the show today by analyzing different cyber attacks that are in the news and bringing the perspective of our three minds and perspectives when it comes to cybersecurity. So that's the show in a nutshell. And we appreciate you sharing the show, liking where you can, commenting where you can. We see it if you're watching us live on social media. We live stream to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and then we post this podcast in audio format on all the podcasting platforms. So wherever you watch us, wherever you find us, there's something you can do to help promote the show, whether that's a like, 5-star review, just leave a review, share it with your friends and family. Just take that link and post it into your social media feed and let people know that this is a worthwhile podcast and people should pay attention to this stuff. Continue to do that. We'll bring you the goods every week. Anything else you guys want to add?
No, you said it all. No, we have no paid sponsors.
No paid sponsors, except for your white Yeti. So,
we won't say who's on the outside of that container.
Randy's favorite company. He uses all their products. So here we go. So let's talk about it. We got from the top, we got Starbucks. Well, the news is saying Starbucks was hit with a ransomware attack. It's really the thing we've been talking about this year in 2024, a third-party attack. And these third-party attacks are impacting businesses more and more every single day. We've been talking about them since the end of last year or middle of last year, saying they were going to be a massive problem for companies. When this, the big one that initially happened to that payroll company that escapes me right now, of course, that's where it kind of started, right? We started to see the impacts of that. We saw CDK, which was a major automotive software company that took down 15,000 dealers across the United States. And now we're seeing tons of other third-party attacks where the supply chain is being affected. Grocery stores unable to stock shelves. And that's it. And this particular cloud software is impacting Starbucks, among other grocery stores, in a separate attack. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about a cyber attack on a lottery and gambling giant, as well as an interesting twist on a hack of a health club, and why you need to be aware of these types of threats as well. We'll talk about what that threat was and what you need to be aware of. And then we have two following up segments, or two articles or two things to talk about from our following up segment. That's a New York fining GEICO and Travelers for their data breaches, and we'll talk about how much that was and why they were fined. And then we'll jump into the Ahold Delhaize attack, otherwise known as the grocery store hack, Stop and Shop, Food Lion, Giant food stores. We'll give you an update on what is going on there and whether or not they're going to be able to restock their shelves in time for the Thanksgiving holiday. So, gentlemen, let's jump into it. What's going on? What is going on with the Starbucks hack? I guess Starbucks is the big name that was kind of involved here, one of the customers of this cloud provider. Andre, you want to take it? What's going on here?
Yeah. So as always, like you said, Starbucks is what makes the headlines, but and what people are probably going to say, the average Joe is going to be like, oh, I heard Starbucks got hacked because they're just reading the headlines. But as look into it deeper, it's actually a supply chain hack where a third party application AI tool that they use is the one that actually is the one that got affected. And specifically, it's called Blue Yonder. And what they do, one of their products is kind of like time clock, payroll, managing all of that for their thousands of employees all across the U.S. So it doesn't appear to be affecting the consumer, where you go and purchase a coffee, nothing is being affected there. But what is being affected is the payroll. So I would like to say kudos to Starbucks for saying they're going to make sure that all of their employees get paid for the holidays, and they're going to make sure they do things right. And they're already telling the employees how to manually enter their time, and then how they're going to get paid in an alternative method. Because we've seen with some companies where it's the exact opposite. They're telling, hey, go figure it out. We can't help you. We're stuck, and we don't know what to do. So at least it seems that Starbucks, at least based on what they're saying, they have some type of plan, and they're going to that plan.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a good point. Their Blue Yonder is like an e-commerce fulfillment company. So think of like an Amazon for like a private Amazon for yourself, for your company, where you can order things you need, make sure you have them in stock. A lot of that stuff going on in the back end to run these companies. So I think this is going to end up being a bigger deal than we realize, because they provide these services for a lot more than just Starbucks. We have some grocery chains overseas, some big companies. Like I think I saw Philip Morris on there. Tried to go to their website just a second ago to get an update from Blue Yonder, and it wouldn't load. It said gateway timeout. So I think, let's peel away the surface a little bit here. Yeah, it's affecting Starbucks. I think this is going to be end up being a pretty big deal. I'm not talking like Colonial Pipeline hack size, but some of these private clouds we saw in the last year, I can't remember the name of. There was another pretty big private cloud that was hacked, affected a ton of companies. This is going to be the same way, it looks like.
Yeah, 100%. It definitely could be. This is going to be ugly, but unfortunately, right now in the early part of the game, Starbucks is getting the early black eye from the media, and that brings up another good point. That people and business leaders should be aware of is that sometimes you get thrown into these situations, these cyber attacks, through these third parties that put a black eye on your company. And this one might not stick, but it's going to have some legs for a little while, right? The headline on CNN is Starbucks forced to pay its baristas manually because of a ransomware attack on third-party software, right? So, they write these things to get the ire of all those baristas, right? And the people that know those baristas and the customers who go in there, and those are the friendly faces that they see every morning. CNN knows damn right well what they're doing when they write that article. So you have no control over what CNN puts as a headline, right? And this is no fault of Starbucks other than they chose a vendor who isn't doing cybersecurity properly, and now their company's being drugged through the mud as a result. So if you don't think it can't happen to you, it can. It might not happen on CNN, but it could happen on your small town newspaper, right? Where they write about your business getting hacked or having to deal with a ransomware attack, or word just gets out through word of mouth. That's also PR. So.
Yeah, I would say who's going to get, obviously Blue Yonder is going to get a financial impact later on. But as far as PR right now, Blue Yonder is going underneath the surface. Nobody's talking about them.
Right.
Yeah, because they're just, there will be fallout for Blue Yonder.
Right.
Let's not twist it. But right now, early on, the sensational piece of this is, the big companies, the Fortune 500 companies that are being impacted by this provider, right? And this can happen all over the place, right? Your MSP can get hacked, and your $5 million a year business is now dealing with something that is affecting your customers. Your industry knows about it because you're not available like you normally are. These are the things that happen to businesses that are on the small scale, where this stuff doesn't hit the news, but all this stuff still happens, right? It still happens. It might not get to, outside of your little puny town newspaper that maybe like 750 people read. But if it's the right 750 people, you're screwed. So,
I got their website, the Blue Yonder website, to load.
Right.
With the updates. Sounds like it affected the private clouds, not their public cloud environment in Azure. So sounds like they're saying it wasn't Azure, but it was their private cloud. And then they're basically saying they're working around the clock. Their last update looks like was what's today? Was Sunday night. Was their last updates, which doesn't seem like enough updates, if you ask me. So it looks like they're doing every couple of days. So
we talk about that a lot, right? Transparency in what they're doing, right? And making sure that you're being transparent the entire time that you're dealing with a ransomware attack to both your employees and your customers. Because what happens when we see companies not being transparent, right? Then the employees and the customers start running to the internet and, spilling their feelings and letting everyone know what's happening to them all over the internet. And the company then loses control of the PR narrative from that aspect too, right? It's a more organic version of the PR that can happen through like something like CNN. So good point. Anything else we want to highlight on this? Before we move on?
Well, yeah. So I've been doing a little extra research here. A lot more that they do than just fulfillment. It looks like, but it looks like this could be big. If they didn't contain it, this could be really big. There's a lot of companies that they deal with here, so this will be interesting.
And Ford Ford made a statement that they're affected too. I don't know if that has anything to do with your finding in the green room.
Yeah, so just to kind of give you a quick update, I looked up some stuff on Blue Yonder, and they just announced they've taken several steps to prevent future ransomware attacks. They're working with external cybersecurity firms. They've implemented defensive and forensic protocols to enhance their security. They've engaged CrowdStrike to assist with recovery efforts. And as Andre said, they're working around the clock to respond and recover the incident. And they're actively monitoring their Azure public cloud environment for any suspicious activity. So it sounds like their Azure environment probably got hit, which is interesting in itself. And then, so what can businesses do what's one thing that comes to mind when I ask this question for you guys? Like, what's one thing businesses can do to mitigate or protect against these third-party vendor ransomware attacks?
Well, so you said mitigate or prevent.
Yeah, like what's one thing a company can look at and say, hey, like we need to check this vendor, or we need to do something to limit this vendor's access. Give me something.
Now I forgot it. No, just kidding. So you can't always know. Now there's some things you could check, but the one thing I was going to say is do a tabletop exercise. I realize this can be different scales. What if this vendor was gone? How would we pay our employees? Do we have a way to pay our employees? Do you have, I'm just going to say that. Do a desktop exercise where you have to survive with X vendor gone. That'd be my answer.
Andre?
I would ask for that vendor's penetration testing reports to just go over like, how vulnerable are they, to kind of just hold them accountable. Of course, you're not going to give them the whole gamut, but give them that. Also put something, I know it's after the fact, but put some, at the end of the day, it's always about money. And if you put some type of contractual agreement that says, if we're down because of you for more than X amount of hours or days, you're going to pay. And then hopefully that makes that company take the cybersecurity way more serious than just saying, well, hey, if we're down, it's, too bad, so sad. We're not responsible.
Too bad, so sad. Love that one. Yeah, I would agree with that.
CrowdStrike, right? That's remember, that's kind of what happened with CrowdStrike, where they were like, hey, with the whole Delta fight, I'm sure they're going to negotiate something, but that was something where they were basically saying it's not, although it was our fault, but it's still your responsibility to have a plan.
I personally think that Delta is going to have to fight tooth and nail to get whatever they think they're going to get from that, because that's going to set a big precedent with limitations of liability in IT companies and tech companies' contracts. So you kind of have to watch with that, in my opinion. So, but I agree with you guys. I think, I guess the first things first, right? Your own house has to be in order before you go assessing your third parties, right? So if your own house is in order, you know what to do because you're doing it in your business. So if you're not doing these things in your business, you can't go harping to your third parties, number one, and saying like, what you should tell me about your cybersecurity practices or tell me about your data protection practices. But if you're doing this stuff, then you know what needs to be done. So then you can put together like a matrix or a spreadsheet that you can share with your partners and vendors and basically say once a year, fill this out and let us know what's going on in your business when it comes to data protection, especially the data that we're giving you or whatever you're responsible on behalf of us, right? How are you protecting that, right? Or how, like if it's payroll, how are you making sure that system is redundant and resilient and it's not going to go down on us? So, we can't run payroll for 3 months. And if their answer is not satisfactory, you either have to decide to change vendors or have some kind of backup plan in place, like we said. But I think companies might hear this and go, oh, let's go ask our vendors or our partners questions, and they're not even doing stuff right themselves. So it starts at home. And then once you're doing the right things at home, then you know the proper things to do, and then you can go out to your third parties and start there. So, all right, guys, what's up? Go ahead.
No, but one more. I just Googled Blue Yonder's annual revenue, and they're a pretty big company, 1.28 billion last year with a 17% growth year over year.
Yeah.
So it's also hard to go to these type of companies. I mean, maybe if you're a Starbucks, you could have that pool to say, but it's like who needs who more, right? Because Blue Yonder could say, who else are you going to go with? We're the best in the industry, and you want the best. So that's something. So the little guys, you go to Blue Yonder, they're going to laugh at you if you ask for any report, right? They're just going to say, go to our website.
Yeah. And hopefully this gets us, in light of that, Andre, this gets us to the place where a company can say they're cyber secure, A, be able to prove it, but also B, that be a selling point in doing business with them. So Starbucks sits down to negotiate with Blue Yonder, and Blue Yonder says, hey, we've got the best security in class. We've got this, blah, blah, blah. We've got this, we've got that, and is able to demonstrate. And maybe there'll come a day when that helps you get more customers, that, hey, I can provide this supply chain, whatever aspect it is that you need, and do it in a secure way. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, but on their website, they're putting Walgreens, Home Depot as their customers. So us little guys, I'm sure we're all saying, well, if it's good enough for Home Depot and Walgreens, then they've done the due diligence for us.
That is 100% a thing, dude.
And don't let someone else do your due diligence. That's a good point.
That's 100%. That's like, oh, they, let's follow them. They must be doing it right.
That's probably coming from the salesperson, right? He's like,
that. I mean, look, it's a look, people buy for emotional reasons, and they rationalize with logic, right? They rationalize the purchase. So when they decide to make the purchase, it's an emotional decision if they're making it that way, right? And that works. We know it works. So, all right. Anything else? Good talk. Good conversation around that topic, guys. Loved it. So let's move on here. And let me go back up to my show notes that I lost. Giant lottery. Wow. Yeah, this was a good one. International Gaming Technology, a global leader in gaming lotteries, was hit by a disruptive cyber attack. And the impact of the attack affected back office systems and operations, forcing International Game Technology to disconnect certain systems to contain the breach. So what's interesting here about this particular breach that you see, guys?
Large company with lots of money, obviously, makes it a good target. That stands out right away. When I read it, I'm like, well, they're definitely going where the money is.
Yeah, they're a major player in global gaming.
1.9 billion.
Yep. And upon detecting the breach, they activated their cybersecurity incident response plan. They took some systems offline to contain the threat and launched an investigation with external advisors. They also implemented business continuity plans to mitigate disruptions and continue servicing customers. I got to tell you, we work with a company in this space. They take security very seriously. They're very heavily regulated by the gaming commission. A lot of times, a lot of states, so they know how to document and make sure that they have all their T's crossed and I dotted in this industry, from what I've seen from the experience we have with the company we worked with. But this attack is part of a broader trend of cyber attacks on the gambling industry and lottery sectors. I just don't think I think that it's the trend of cyber attacks is going up in every industry, not just this industry. As my boy Randy likes to say all the time, they follow the money. So if you got, this is where the money's at, right? This is probably, second best to robbing a bank. So, these are, you just think about it. Just think about, right, how popular back in the day casino heists were, right? Before our time, right? 20s, 30s, 1920s, 1930s. And Vegas and other gambling areas had to kind of figure this out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Put the security measures in place. They got birds in the sky everywhere now. They watch every move of everybody, what's going on. They know the behaviors to look for in somebody who's about to rip off the casino, whether you're doing it at the table or you're doing it some other way. This is a whole new world for this industry, trying to protect the digital casino heist.
With virtual robbers that you can't even put handcuffs on. Even if you know where they are, you can't do nothing about it.
No, I mean, that's what I mean. Like in the olden days of crime, you had to show up to the place you were robbing. I mean, that's not a thing anymore with the internet, and that's the scary thing.
An interesting aspect here, there was the MGM casino last year. That the big hack caused 100 million-ish in damages. The FBI just rolled out in the last week charges against, it was 1 UK and 4 Americans that were actually involved in that. So it also kind of shows, you mentioned the casinos from back in the day getting robbed, measures they've taken. What's gone along with that is the government also following that. You got the gaming commission, that's a lot of money comes in for the government from these things. Well, MGM hack from last year, some people just got served papers in the last week. I don't think that's a coincidence. So just a thought.
And I guess, one of the things that I think about when it comes to this, just reading this situation, they did seem to respond to this appropriately and quickly, although it's too soon for us to understand the financial impact to this company right now. The things that they're saying versus like other attacks we read about, I get the impression that these guys have it together when it comes to the response. What that means in terms of dollars, we don't know. And really your response, your response can play a role into how much this thing's going to cost you for sure. But it could also, that could be nullified by whatever level this attack is, right? If I can take down your whole entire infrastructure versus maybe like one or two important computers, that's a different story. It's going to cost you way more money for the first scenario than the second scenario. So it's really hard to say like their response is going to help with the financial impact of this, but you can tell that they have a really good response plan in place. So I guess what I take from that, guys, and why I say it and why I want to point it out is because these organizations practice this stuff. Like they prepare for this stuff. They prepare for all kinds of scenarios that are adverse to their company, like, cheating bettors and things like that. But they also practice for data breaches and cybersecurity attacks. And that's why they're able to get through this in a calm and controlled way that doesn't look like maybe some of the other attacks we've talked about recently, right? And I think that's the key thing here is that these organizations in this industry practice this stuff, and there's other industries that are very good at this as well. But I would say most industries don't have a freaking clue how to do incident response and disaster recovery planning correctly. So we got to start working on this stuff and doing the right things and practicing this in all businesses on an everyday basis.
That's the difference between having the right leaders and a budget.
Correct. Or the wrong leaders that think budget is more important than cybersecurity or profit, or however you want to say it. All right, good job. So here we go. Hacking of this health club computer system. Wow, this is such an interesting one for me, guys. A health club suffered a data breach of its computer systems, potentially exposing members' personal data, but the incident highlights vulnerabilities in health and fitness data security. But Andre, what was the interesting thing about this health club being hacked?
Okay, so I'm going to give the guy credit, right? Because well, at the beginning only, because he's looking for work, and he, I guess, says, you know what? Let me see what vulnerabilities there is, and then send a message to the owner and say, hey, my name is John. I'm a cybersecurity expert. Hey, look, I was able to get into your network. Hire me. A little illegal, but I'm going to give you credit for being creative. However, he then said, well, since I'm in here and I'm a gym member, let me go ahead and change my membership from $49.99 and let's just make it $1. And then there was another, as you continue on the article, it talks about how he then logged into he hacked into a nonprofit's system, and he found a credit card number and decided to just start buying stuff for himself. So I guess his intentions were very overzealous and a little like good at the beginning, but then when he realized what he can do, that's when the fall down happened, and he deserves all the jail time he's going to get.
It's such a weird scenario. So we'll get into the conversation about these types of threats, right? Or whether you want to call them insider threats or just these kind of like nuisance type threats. But he kind of loses me on the whole angle of I'm trying to sell you my services side of things when he took things to the level that he took them. Because not only did he do the things that you mentioned, but he erased photographs from the gym's database. He stole a staff member's name tag. Why would you do that? What are you really trying to do? After gaining control of the gym's security camera system, he posted screenshots on social media showing his control with a message about how to get a company to use his security service. So he's going to face up to 15 years in prison and fines. and the nonprofit organization that he hacked had to spend over $5,000 on remediation efforts. So
It's
go ahead, Randy.
Well, I was going to say, first off, it's kind of 2-bit. This is obviously low level.
Yeah.
But then there's this whole, I don't understand this about some IT people are kind of just like this. And it's just all kind of weird. Like you're doing this to get people to buy your services, but then you're boasting about it somewhere else.
Well, if you got to commit a crime to promote your services,
like that's really shady. It's like
most people wouldn't do business with people like that.
No,
you just hacked my system. Yeah, let me hire you. Great.
It's like buying cable TV from a Spectrum technician who's hooking it up for free. You know what I mean? It's like,
what is your number one core value there?
Honesty.
That's what I'm saying. Like you have
theirs. You're right.
Most IT companies is like honesty, integrity, or something like that, right? What is yours when you're doing stuff like that?
It's the opposite, right?
It's
anyway.
Have to invent a word for that, I guess.
It's shady and shifty.
Shady, shifty is a good one. Slimy. I like slimy.
Yeah.
So, anything interesting about this? But this brings up a good perspective or good conversation for businesses to understand that there's low-level criminals out here that will destroy your business at the same time, right? Not big hacking groups. I've seen this with IT guys that have been fired or engineers who've worked with like an MSP or an IT company and been fired, and they've gone back and done something similar to this to their employers, custom or clients or their own ex-employer. We've seen stuff like that happen too, right? Where guys are like, hey, yeah, I got fired from here. I'm going to hack into their system because I know how, right? So just be aware that like it doesn't have to be a cyber criminal sitting halfway across the world to ruin your day. It could be some dude sitting 3 blocks away. So, all right, guys, we're back into our following up segment where we're going to talk about the Ahold Delhaize, and before we talk about that, we're going to talk about these fines by New York against GEICO and Travelers for their data breaches. So it's just interesting. I've seen a lot of government. It's amazing to me that this stuff doesn't make the news, but it appears to me that between our federal government and our local or state governments, they are kind of like raking it in when it comes to fines for not protecting data. And it's going under the radar big time. I mean, if people really knew the numbers, I think their heads would be blown. And I'm talking about Georgia, University of Georgia, Penn State University. Both of these organizations were just charged by our federal government under the Federal False Claims Act and fined. And they're a university, they're full cash, so they're going to pay it, right? But your kids are going to pay more for their tuition as a result. Now we have GEICO and Travelers, so now you're going to pay more for your insurance, and it's fined those two companies over $11 million for their data breaches. And the government is no longer messing around. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in the next administration. And his prior administration, they didn't seem to care about this stuff too much. So we'll see how far it goes. We'll see if these organizations, these government administrations who've been tasked with enforcing this stuff, if they continue to follow through like we saw with this current administration. But there's been a lot of fines in the last several years around this stuff, guys. And I don't think it's going to slow down. And what I mean by the incoming administration not paying attention, meaning I think they're just going to let these administrations do what they do. They're not going to stop it. They're not going to slow it down. So, and there's the potential that they could increase it if there's some major cyber attack that doesn't make our government look good. We know how that's going to go. Thoughts?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's interesting that one of the reasons they got fined was because, there's one thing if you got hacked and you did everything possible, but it's another thing in GEICO's case where they were notified multiple times about this hacking campaign targeting their quoting tools, but they failed to take the adequate preventative measures. So that was just like a no-brainer. It's like someone's telling you you've got an issue. Now this is, I think, 2020 because they're just now getting to the fine part. But never, and a lot of things have changed as far as bounties and so forth like that. But I just want to give credit to the state of New York for having these type of laws on their books and being able to go after these companies, because that's really the only way. If you hurt their pockets, that's the only way they're going to take it seriously.
The other thing, New York DFS has phenomenal cybersecurity program in place that the companies that fall under that need to follow. I agree with you, Andre. The other thing too is when these companies go down by New York DFS, we have a lot of experience with this. These companies are basically babysat for the next 2 years with their cybersecurity program by New York DFS. So typically companies only have to submit something every year. New York DFS is going to be all over these two companies for the next 2 years. It's not going to be, hey, we get to submit it once a year by the deadline. There's going to be a lot of reporting, a lot of things that they have to show that they're doing, New York, in terms of improving their cybersecurity program.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's all good. We get a lot of noise from the top, if you will, about crime, cybercrime, ransoms, and this and that, and disruptions. But where the teeth are in laws, almost always, it really seems like it really has to do with customer information. These guys were fined for customer information getting breached. Am I wrong or am I right?
You're 1,000% right. That's all the government cares about. The government cares about people's information. If you don't protect it, they're going to come get you.
And that's the lesson for the day, right?
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, it's stupid stuff. I mean, Travelers, their hack happened in 2001. So basically 2.5 years ago, right? And this is a company that sends out questionnaires to millions of companies on a yearly basis saying, do you use multi-factor authentication in order to buy the product that they sell, right? And these knuckleheads didn't have multi-factor authentication enforced on a portal, making it easy for hackers to exploit, and the breach went undetected for 7 months. And they were able to steal the personal information of 4,000 New Yorkers. Now, that's just New Yorkers, because that's all that DFS cares about is New York. So that means that there's probably other people in the other 49 states that aren't included in these numbers and in this attack. GEICO, they had their issue in 2020, and they had multiple cyber incidents due to vulnerabilities on its website and a quoting tool used by their agents in like independent insurance agents' offices. And those vulnerabilities allowed hackers to access driver's license numbers, which were later used for fraudulent unemployment claims during the COVID-19 pandemic. So that affected you, taxpayer of America.
Yep.
So, all right, guys, let's move right along and let's finish up the show with an update on the Ahold Delhaize cyber attack, otherwise known as the grocery store hack, where grocery store brands like Food Lion, Stop and Shop, and Giant Foods were dealing with low stock shelves and all kinds of problems, not being able to purchase things through the pharmacy, not being able to do things online, not being able to use credit cards in the store and only cash. And Stop and Shop has said that they are pretty much recovered to this point, guys. What are your thoughts?
Am I going?
Sure.
Well, so, this has been a minute, and I think I say this a lot, but as normal business owners, businesses out in the world, we don't understand the impact that a cybersecurity incident can have. And we're looking at 8 on the 8th. So we're looking at a couple, like 2.5 weeks ago when they were disrupted. Now they're mostly back to normal. Can you imagine if your business for 2.5 weeks had a reduced stream of income or completely no stream of income because one of your financial systems isn't working? Would you be able to make it, through that time? How would you pay your employees? Like, all these things are really big questions that we don't really realize until we see it, and then we know.
And I'm more concerned about they didn't talk about how it happened. Is our consumers' data? We know their pharmacy department was also affected. So is that information now out on the dark web? Did they pay the ransom? So it'll be interesting to see when they release that. And but the good news is, as a sorry but not sorry, they are offering free coffee this Saturday and Sunday if you stop by their store.
Nice.
Well,
you always have you always have the nugget.
That's right. And that's a small thing, but at the same time, we're all going to experience this one time or another. So let's learn how to get ready for it the right way, handle it the right way, follow up with it the right way. And you know what? Maybe pass out coffee. Maybe they're going to just start doing free coffee from here on out. You know what I mean? Because it did disrupt their customers, but hopefully their customers can understand and we can, they can all get back to buying stuff from them, right?
It's interesting you say that because the article I have in front of me says some customers remain concerned about the ongoing shortages and the company's ability to prevent future incidents.
Yikes. See?
So,
and that's not something we normally think about when we're thinking about, oh yeah, I know that we should be cyber secure, but it's too expensive or we're too busy or whatever. Like, this is really this happens in almost every case. Customers are impacted negatively where they go somewhere else.
100%. So good job. Good analysis. Good show. Hope everyone has a really good, happy Thanksgiving. We'll see everybody same time next week, right?
No, actually.
We're a little early next week.
Yeah.
Earlier next week, but still on Tuesday.
Next week we're a little earlier? Yeah, well.
Yep. A little earlier next week, but on Tuesday. All right, we'll see everyone next week. Share the show. Bye, everybody.
All right, bye, everybody.